By the United Nations Security Council. Good evening. As an extra 14,000 troops from Germany are making preparations to boost the Allied forces in the Gulf, soldiers from BAOR, already there, have been put on their highest state of alert so far, in case Saddam Hussein tries to retaliate, following the United Nations decision to back force. The Iraqi president described the United Nations resolution as an act of war.
These men are almost certain to be in the Gulf for Christmas, but to avoid offending local Muslims, celebrations will be low-key. This year at least, there'll be no brandy sauce on the Christmas pudding.
The opening moments of the war, and flares illuminate an Iraqi stronghold. This is the view from the night sights of an Allied attack vehicle. Scottish troops who've travelled at high speed in the darkness have penetrated deep into Iraq, and an entire armoured battalion is about to be overwhelmed. These pictures, being shown for the first time, were taken by Private Ray Thompson of the Royal Scots Regiment, who was aboard one of the British Warrior armoured personnel carriers which spearheaded the Allied advance into western Iraq. The time and date on the video confirms when the first Iraqi prisoners of war were taken. Conscripts lined up and systematically searched before being taken away in their hundreds. The Iraqis were trapped, their tanks and heavy artillery facing the wrong direction. The man who led the invasion, Lieutenant Colonel Ian Johnson, says he's extremely proud of his men.
I believe that all the wives and families should be proud of them too. Indeed, the Scottish nation should be proud of them because of what they've done and the way that they've done it. From one moment being ruthless and on the other side showing a compassion, sometimes almost too much compassion, for those that they killed, wounded, and those that they were capturing. It was very short and it was extremely violent. I think the Iraqis must have found it awe-inspiring. There was so much equipment, so much noise, so much firepower going down on their positions. And before they had a chance to recover, there was a rumble of tanks, and then the Jots got out and sort of absolutely terrifying.
The Iraqis suffered huge losses. Almost 800 men were taken prisoner. A huge amount of arms and equipment, most of it Soviet-made, was seized. 2 days later, an army helicopter was flying over the area again to assess the full extent of the damage. Dozens of Iraqi tanks had been disabled. Some were still burning. These men were the first to face the Iraqi soldiers in the trenches, hand-to-hand fighting which lasted for almost an hour.
They've got a job to do, and they're trying to do the job. So, I mean, as far as killing goes, if we've got to be killed, we've got to be killed. If we don't kill them, then they kill us.
Every man goes through fear, and if you don't go through fear, then there's something definitely wrong with you. I mean, before you actually assault the position, fear is gone. Your main instinct is to get out, get on your belly, and get in again and kill the enemy.
The speed and accuracy of the Allied advance into Iraq was made possible by satellite navigation. Inside each armoured vehicle, a computer, no bigger than a car radio. Not only did it stop the British tanks getting lost in the desert, but it helped pinpoint the enemy positions with great accuracy.
We're now 60 miles inside Iraq. Scottish troops who are helping to clear these foxholes are stepping very carefully because the desert is littered with anti-personnel devices. That little thing is shot there beside the bullet. If you stood in it, it would take your leg off, possibly kill you.
Abandoned Iraqi ammunition is also scattered all over the desert. Some has been recovered and is now being used by the Scottish soldiers for training purposes. These men from the Queen's Own Highlanders have been firing this Soviet-made anti-tank weapon, which was used against them in the early hours of the war. This is Ken Bryson for BBC Reporting Scotland in southern Iraq.
There have been emotional scenes at Edinburgh Airport this evening as the Royal Scots finally returned home from the Gulf. More than 400 soldiers who were involved in some of the fiercest fighting of the war flew back to meet relatives and friends in an incredible reunion. Our reporter Alan Fisher followed the soldiers from Germany.
There was excitement in the air as the plane took off from an RAF base in Germany, making its way back to Scotland. On board, the soldiers who'd been at the forefront of the Allied attack in Iraq, now with their families heading for some well-earned leave.
For the Royal Scots, the last leg of the long journey home from the Gulf is almost over. In the next few minutes, this plane will touch down in Edinburgh, and the soldiers will be back home in Scotland.
As the Royal Scots touched down on Scottish soil, they were greeted by the skirl of the pipes. It was an emotional homecoming.
Brilliant. How did you feel when the aircraft actually touched down and that was you back in Scottish soil?
Big cheers everywhere.
Oh, yeah, great. Get the party started.
Great reception. I think the pipers topped it off. I didn't think we expected to have a piper here, but it's really great to be back home Scotland.
But the warmest reception came from the hundreds who'd gathered in the terminal building to welcome the boys back home. The Royal Scots who fought in the Gulf campaign will now spend a month on leave with their families before heading back to Germany.